Okay, welcome back to this segment. Oh, it looks like I kind of jumped down here. Okay, so that being then the survey of a number of progressive and activist economic activities that are an alternative to the corporate business model, the US-led type model, based on profiteering and shareholder inequality and power differences. So now Native Americans, then we have some interesting, I mean, in terms of their entry, we can look at some examples of how Native Americans have had to negotiate the various layers and elements involved, psychosocial and cultural, socioeconomic, in maneuvering in the American context. For example, since 2010, Keith Harper, a Cherokee, became, going back to now the Obama years, right, with Obama elected in 2008, Keith Harper managed the campaign contributions by Native Americans to Barack Obama. And he was able to achieve record levels of campaign contributions. And so ultimately he became the first indigenous American appointed to an ambassadorial position. So we're talking about then at that level of mainstream politics, in as much as Obama represented sort of an appearance and a different, slightly different demographic in his ethnicity, in his ethnic elements, the ethnic elements of he and his wife, and so on. Now, at the same time, along with his achieving that position, Keith Harper, he was also involved in helping resolve a First Nation class action suit against the U.S. government, that one that had been dragging along for some years. Cobell versus Kempthorne, against two U.S. government agencies. So by the time the Obama administration got there, it was resolved, and but there was still an issue. The amount of money was quite enormous. I think in some, maybe even $2 billion. Is that? That's what I recall. The amount I recall seeing. So with this enormous amount of money, the fees for the lawyers, of which Keith Harper was one, were enormous. At least 85 million in absolute numbers, because of the overall enormous amount of money involved. So Keith Harper then didn't go pro bono and went around visiting the various tribes to justify the fees. So that's already an example of some of the navigating that of the socioeconomic, psychosocial and cultural fabric and issues that needs to go on as people are involved. Native Americans in particular get involved with the American systems, right? So further events and include the 2018 House elections, which involved the landmark election of 2 Native American women to Congress. That would be Democrats Laguna Pueblo Tribal Deb Haaland and Ho-Chunk Sharice Davids. Now, there were already 2 male representatives as Republicans, Chickasaw Tom Cole and Cherokee Mark Wayne Mullins. So we see there already the different alignments of Democratic Party, Republican Party. So now before then there had been the Cheyenne Ben Nighthorse Campbell, who had a long congressional career beginning in the 1980s when he started as a Democratic rep, then retired later on as a Republican senator in the early 2000s. These are some of the political and with touches of and hints at some of the economic activity behind it and related to it, given the different parties, the party orientations, and their relationship to business activity. So we can, one business activity that I might think of is, and that you might think of, is casinos, right? Native Americans have become active casino entrepreneurs in the U.S. in various places. And in researching Ms. Davids a little bit, Sharice Davids, the elected rep to Congress, she had been involved with community development activity and had started her own cafe, a small business. So now we begin to take a step and get a look briefly at a related perspective. Attorney Jeff Gates wrote a book called The Ownership Solution, and in it he talks about how there's a problem in America where entrepreneurship is not a normal, it's not an entrepreneurial culture. It's a corporate consumer culture. And there are certain reasons for that. And so we're going to look at some more of this, but also with an eye, particularly with an eye towards how Native Americans are relating to this. All right, so thanks. We'll see you in the next segment.